Have you ever found yourself pouring money into pay-per-click ads, hiring what you thought were the best experts, and then just staring at the results thinking, why isn't this working? You know, PPC, where you pay for every single click on your ads on places like Google. If you're not seeing the returns you expect, believe me, you are not alone. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and diagnose what's really going on. Okay, let's get into it.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with the problem that everybody sees. Then we'll play detective and uncover the hidden issues, first inside the ad campaign itself, and then we'll go even deeper, right into the business fundamentals. After that, we'll spotlight the common money pits you need to avoid, lay out a clear path to success, and wrap it all up with a pro tip that might just change how you think about marketing forever.
Okay, let's set the scene. This is a story that plays out every single day in business forums and social media groups. It's that cry for help that has become way too common. The frustration is just, you can feel it. And it usually sounds a little something like this.
Sound familiar? This right here, it perfectly captures that feeling of being stuck on a hamster wheel. You're doing everything you're supposed to do, you're hiring the specialists, you're spending the money, but the needle, it just isn't moving. And it is incredibly frustrating.
So what happens next? Well, people jump in with these quick fix answers. They'll say, oh, you should try SEO, search engine optimization. Or you'll get a dozen people saying, hey, let me take a look. But honestly, these answers are like putting a tiny bandage on a broken leg. They might cover up the symptom for a second, but they do absolutely nothing to fix the real problem, which is usually way, way deeper.
All right, let's start peeling back the layers of this onion. The very first layer, the ad campaign itself. Now, this is where most people assume the problem lives. And look, while it's not the whole story, it's often where the financial bleeding starts. This number, it pretty much says it all. A staggering 50 to 70% of ad accounts managed by people who are, let's say, a little inexperienced, failed to turn a profit in their first year. Just let that sink in for a moment. The majority of these accounts are literally just burning cash.
So, why that massive failure rate? Well, it usually comes down to one of these classic textbook mistakes. Take flawed or missing measurement, for example. If you aren't accurately tracking which clicks are actually turning into paying customers, you are completely flying blind. You have no idea what's working and what's not, so you're basically just throwing money into the wind and hoping some of it sticks.
And this chart, wow, it paints a pretty sobering picture of the industry. Based on years of looking at thousands of ad accounts, a shocking 50% are basically hopeless from the get-go. Another 40% might have some good parts, but they're crippled by one single fatal flaw. And that leaves just a tiny 10% sliver of accounts that are actually set up correctly for success. It's wild.
But here's the real kicker. Even if your campaign is technically perfect, even if you're in that top 10%, you can still fail, and fail spectacularly. So why? Because sometimes the ads aren't the problem at all.
Just look at this. This breakdown completely flips the conversation on its head. Around 70% of PPC failures aren't caused by bad ads. Nope, they're caused by cracks in the business's foundation itself. Your ads can be absolutely brilliant, but they can't sell a broken product or a bad offer. It's just not possible.
I want you to think of your PPC campaign as a brilliant usher, perfectly guiding the ideal audience right to their seats in a movie theater. But if the movie is terrible, if your website is slow or it's confusing or it just feels untrustworthy, people are not going to stick around and buy a ticket. Your website, your offer, that's the movie, and it has to deliver.
The performance gap we're talking about here is just massive. We're looking at return on ad spend, or ROAS. Basically, for every dollar you put in, how many dollars do you get back? An amateur-run campaign might be struggling just to break even, to get that 1x ROAS. But a professional, data-driven approach that fixes both the campaign and the business, you could be looking at 3, 4, even 5 times that return. It's a whole different ballgame.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem. Now, before we start writing the prescription for the cure, let's talk about the traps you need to avoid. These are the expensive money pits that you absolutely have to steer clear of, especially when you're feeling frustrated and desperate for a fix.
Here they are, the big 3. First, don't just jump to a different channel. If your website is the real problem, you're just going to burn money on TikTok instead of Google. Second, don't hire a new agency with the same vague hopes that failed you before. And finally, please don't fall for the unicorn of marketing. Fast, cheap, and good. I'm telling you, it's a myth. You can have 2 of those, but you can never, ever have all 3.
All right, enough with the panicked reactive fixes. It's time to get strategic. Here is a clear, step-by-step process you can follow to take back control and find a partner who can actually truly deliver results.
This whole process, it forces you to get crystal clear. First, define your goals in hard numbers, not just vague hopes. Then, write a detailed brief. Do your own research for certified pros. Maybe look for Google Premier partners. But here's the golden rule, the most important part. Judge a potential partner by the questions they ask you, not by their slick sales pitch. A real pro will care more about your profit margins and your business than they do about their own portfolio.
So we've covered a ton of ground, but I want to leave you with one final incredibly powerful tip. This is for anyone out there who wants to get the absolute best possible return on their investment and finally take real control of their marketing.
Okay, imagine this. You find your dream agency. They're the best in the business, but their monthly fee is just way out of reach. Don't just walk away defeated. Instead, ask if you can buy their expertise in a smaller dose, maybe a 2-hour strategy session or a deep dive audit of your entire advertising account.
Now, why would you do that? Because a professional audit can often uncover 20 to 50% in performance improvements, sometimes in just a couple of weeks. That is a massive win from a small, one-time investment.
And the data backs this up. Businesses that invest in this kind of strategic consulting are 30% more likely to actually hit their revenue goals. You're not just buying advice here, you're buying a roadmap, a blueprint to success that you or a more affordable team can then execute.
Just think about it for a second. A single hour with a true expert can literally save you months of frustration and thousands upon thousands in wasted ad spend. It stops all the guesswork and starts the strategic building. It's not an expense. It's one of the highest return investments you can possibly make.
At the end of the day, PPC isn't a magic wand. It's a precision tool. And in business, the winner isn't the one with the best tricks. It's the one with the best strategy. So are you ready to stop chasing magic and start building a real, solid, sustainable business? Because your answer to that question will define your future.